Then everybody else you can.
And they can give it to me.
Of course, yeah. I don't even think that should be an agenda item. All right, we played phone tag.
Yeah.
Was it highly important?
No, it wasn't urgent. But I was and I think you got to somebody got it. She called me and asked. I just want to bring it to your attention. There's a wedding exciting. They went. She called today and said, "And Brian asked for me." And then they said, "Well, there we go." It's so crazy. You guys, so it all went. They're like, what's the whole family?
We're on the old, like, 2-3 days ago. If you talk about your parents, call me. I got them. Oh my gosh, and then.
They want to confuse you.
There's a lot of comments, some old ones that we guess, it weren't like any other. And then you ready? So there's this one.
I changed the order because they're married to me the most current. I asked because I didn't think they went together because they're all individual. That's okay.
That's fine. That's fine. Sure.
Yeah, and then I switched to the music skirt too. I don't know much about it.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Where's the
Steve, I don't think I'm going to need this one for quite some time, you probably so. There you go. I've checked the phone. There's a little bit enough on the side. Sunny day yesterday.
Oh, I know. You have
It has a canal.
We're very close to starting. I'm going to give Cass a couple minutes, and then we'll start. She'll be here in a minute. I first of all would like to welcome the men of our Hailey Police Department. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you here, and we're welcoming back Manny who will be part of our team on a scheduled basis, and we'll learn more about that later. But welcome. Okay, are you ready over here?
Sure.
Everybody's ready. Then I would like to call this meeting to order. It is 5:30. It is August 23rd, 2021. Are there any changes to our agenda? Staff? Council? Okay then. Before we move to that item though, I would like to open this meeting up for public concerns that will not be on the agenda this evening. So if you wish to address the council with thoughts, concerns, please give us your name and residential address. The floor is open and we have our cameras going, so we'll be able to track you if you need to call in or come in online. Floor is open, please.
Oh, turn that.
I got you.
one
I got you.
Down below. One, I'll help you. Thank you, Juan.
Hi, Mike McKenna, 319 East Croy. It's my privilege as a member of the chamber to provide you guys with the full $15,000 check for this year's fireworks. The chamber was able to tap into the local business community and local folks. We raised the full 15 grand. It's a really great thing, and it's an honor for me to do this. And big businesses, the little businesses, the mom and pops, the people putting coins in at the supermarket, the community came together. It was best in all of our interests. They gave us 15 grand, so I'm stoked to pass this over to the city.
Thank you, members of the community chamber. It was wonderful to have a celebration after a dormant year. Thank you very much, Mike, and thank all of you contributors. Are there others who wish to speak to the council? Items that will not be on the agenda? Then I'd like to bring it back now to our council. Do you have questions or items that you want to discuss before we approve that consent agenda? I'm getting nods of no all the way around. Then I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda
As presented.
as presented. Second.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? One.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
Heidi. Aye. Thank you all. I'm going to hold off my mayor's remarks. I have some things to share with you later, but I want to move this meeting forward. So it is a great deal of pleasure that we have a chief. You're going to be doing this primarily. I am going to be standing. Take it away, Chief. Or not.
Working?
Yeah.
Stand up here real quick if you don't mind. So, Madam Mayor, fellow council members, citizens, community members, just have a few announcements. We have a lot of great things going on at the police department. That's why I asked to have just a little of your time tonight. And first of all, a few things that came up even since I asked to be put on the agenda for a presentation of the board is, for instance, last week, well, number one, we have Manny who was able to come back to us quarter time. And so he's able to be here tonight because this is part of his 10 shifts on for the month he's going to do. And he was a sergeant with us for quite a few years. Did, I think it was 13 years? 13 years with us. Been gone for about 2.5, but he still has a certification, so he's able to come back and help out. He knows the community still, and so that's definitely beneficial to us all, to our police department and the community. And then just last week, we had 2 meetings, 2 school board meetings, one at the community campus meeting more room. And, whether you're for or against the mask, we had some good feedback about Sergeant Peck and SRO Shauna Wallace that were there on the police department's behalf to help hopefully keep the peace. And we had a lot of good feedback from community members and school board members and the superintendent about professionalism and how they were able to keep pretty much everything at bay. And where they did, obviously escalate out of hand. And so I was at a Chiefs meeting last week, a statewide Chiefs meeting in the Treasure Valley in Boise. And so it's nice to get that feedback, of course, and know that I can be absent, away out of town, away from the office, and people still step up in leadership roles and take personnel take professional and responsibility within their jobs and still lead the department while I'm gone. So I appreciate that greatly. And on to the awards now. So we have one gentleman, Officer Brian Davis, who I was going to present his basic certificate to. He had an engagement that he wanted to make sure he made, a previous engagement, and said to let you know he's sorry he's absent tonight, but we will make sure he gets his basic post certificate, and that is your first major certificate, and that's when you get certified to be a police officer within the state of Idaho. And so your first step, more or less. He came to us from California and was able to challenge his post test, and did so successfully. Obviously, he's been with us about 15 months now. And then I'll have Andrew come up here in a second. Officer Andrew Tucker over here. He's been with us about, 16 months now. So he got his basic post certificate a few months ago, and when I acknowledge that, I'll hand that to him here in a sec. But Andrew, if you'll come up real quick. We have within our policy at the Hailey Police Department, we have a life-saving award here. Wednesday. You know, so community, see it. Community, Andrew Tucker.
Are you stunned at the silence?
No, so 3 months ago, actually, to this day, the evening of Sunday, May 23rd, 1240 Silver Star down here in Bellevue subdivision, there was a medical call for service, and it escalated quickly to a Valley All call. When there's a Valley All call, it goes out to all the radios throughout Wayne County, all the first responders, EMS, fire, police. It means it's a very immediate medical emergency, and police all hands on deck, whoever can get there. Even, those are the kind of situations where an off-duty paramedic or a doctor in the area, if they're close by or live close by, they respond ASAP and help out with the situation. And this was at 10:28 at night. Obviously, it's pretty slow on a Sunday night for the most part in our, fairly safe community, so that's good. Andrew was on with Officer Cervantes, and Andrew responded very quickly, made a code run to that address because of the severity of the call. Got there within 2 minutes. By the time he was getting there is when they came out with the Valley All call, putting that out. And so Andrew was the first responder, EMS or police on scene, and immediately took over CPR. Did CPR for approximately 90 minutes, still stayed with the 71-year-old gentleman. I'm sorry, thank you, that's a long time. Thank you. They keep me in line with the officer, that's good. 90 seconds, 90 minutes, oh man, that's impressive. 90 seconds, yes, thank you. And a 71-year-old gentleman was here visiting his family, and him and his wife were from Florida. And Andrew got there so quick, assessed the situation, stayed calm, but continued on with immediate action after seeing what the situation was like, and stayed there with the not victim because he lived obviously, and stayed there with his name's Bob Brooksiger, excuse me. And said we could give his name tonight because he's so happy that he's still here with us. Thanks a large effort to Andrew's heroic efforts that night as far as being able to give the CPR for 90 seconds, stay with him until Wood River Fire and Rescue and Hailey Fire and Rescue got there. And we do carry AEDs, but at that time, Andrew was obviously the best thing he could do at that time was CPR. And so they got there, got going with the AEDs, and continued on. While Andrew was giving the CPR, I actually reviewed the body cam, and it was awesome seeing his professional growth and the quick action he made. Bob actually started, gasping for a little bit of air, not coming to necessarily, but definitely started getting to where once the paramedics got there, they could take further action. Got Bob to the hospital, local hospital. He got life flighted. Ended up, I believe it was a triple bypass, if I remember right, his daughter told me. And was able to come home just 3 or 4 days later back to Hailey. He wanted to fly out real quick to get back to Florida because that's where he and his wife had some other engagements they were going to go to where they live. His daughter said, "Heck no, Dad," and he stayed with him a little longer. And they sent a very nice letter. They all signed it and sent some really nice thoughts and to Andrew and they by their appreciation and the words of gratitude in those letters, they're definitely feel that they feel forever in Andrew's death. So I am presenting him with a letter of commendation here for the Hailey Life Saving Award, and he'll get the life service bar also to wear on his uniform at BC. I want to forget, Andrew, there's your, yes, basic, your original basic peace officer.
Are you dying to speak?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know. I just did my.
So they can agree online there.
I don't know. I just did what anybody else would have done that I work with. So appreciate the accommodation and the attention. So.
If you don't mind, once more, Mayor. Real quick, Andrew said he did what anybody else would have done. Yes, a lot of people would take action, a lot of people would help if they had any kind of background or experience or training in those conditions. But in police work, our day-to-day police work, we go to calls for service, or have contacts with everyone here in the community and otherwise, and visitors to our area, which Bob was visiting his family. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, in our work, it gets a little mundane, and we take it for granted, the calls for service, because we don't see the result. And so the awesome thing, like Andrew said, is what he would have done, anybody at PD would have done, but it's nice to see that result and see that Bob's able to continue to carry on and live his life how he wants to, and he's still with us here today. So his wife, actually, one thing she wrote in there, she said, "Thank you very much for saving my husband, Bob." If you don't mind.
Yeah.
She actually, I have a copy of it here. She said, and she gave permission to read this. "Thanks to you, Bob and I will be together to celebrate our 50th anniversary next March. Thank you for giving last Sunday night a happy ending. Linda, Bob's wife." And then, of course, like I said, his son-in-law, his daughter, and grandsons also wrote very nice things in there. And so, again, Andrew, thank you very much, and thank you for being part of the City of Hailey Police Department.
We are grateful. And now, if you want to. Thank you so much.
Not that one.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those of you that are in the hall, please come forward. We have seats now for you. And I just have to say that every now and then, I might get a lump in my throat. Every now and then, good things happen to good people. And we just witnessed that. And talk about humility. Talk about, oh no, it's nothing. But think about it. I mean, it's alive. He did that. It's so cool. Anyway, so welcome the rest of you. Phew. Okay, we do have a couple of appointments celebrating. Come in.
You like?
We are filling our Hailey Arts and Historic Preservation Commission with 2 new faces. And if they're here, would you wave to me? Okay then. Too bad. But I would request from the council and a very specific invitation to Gwen and Herbert to serve on this, and that we call them out and ask that we get your support for this resolution, their appointment. So Gwen would serve until December 31st, 2021. She's going to be filling. And Herbert will go until December 31st, 2024. And we are grateful for public service at all levels, and this is marvelous. So, do we need another motion? We covered it pretty much in the consent agenda.
We do not.
So thank you, you people who are serving. We have a great, great board, and we are grateful to you. Okay, back to other business. This is our first public hearing this evening, and I'm going to ask, please, that we refrain from council deliberation. We will have two prongs, two considerations before us tonight. One is a presentation through the City of Hailey's chamber and representatives with a petition with, I think, information that we hadn't heard before. I'd like to hear that very much. And the other is a presentation by the Wood River Land Trust, because we have had an invitation by them to work closely to extend our recreational opportunities along the Hailey Greenway Master Plan. And so there are two different discussions going on. They will affect our actions this evening. So I don't know, staff, do we need any background? And maybe you could introduce the players.
I don't believe any more needs to be said, Mayor. I think you outlined it quite nicely, and however you choose to proceed with the two parties. I see our Land Trust partners here and our Chamber of Commerce partners here, and many interested people, citizens, both on the call, online, and here in person tonight.
Let's have the Land Trust, if you would, share with us what you are considering.
Sure.
Knowing that this goes back to your board.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, City Council members.
And Amy, I'm sorry, Carrie, you'll need to speak very close to the mic to be heard by those online. You can take it out of the thing if that's awkward for you.
It's easier to hold it.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to be literally a couple inches from your mouth for them to hear you well online. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council members, for, again, hearing from the Land Trust on the topic, which is the City of Hailey's Croy Canyon property, which is adjacent to the Wood River Land Trust Simon's Bower Preserve. And I think as you all know, the Land Trust and the city have been partnering on a pathway forward for almost a year, thinking about this property. This began when the city applied for a grant to build a municipal campground, and that subsequently led into a series of public meetings held by the city and the Land Trust to update the Hailey Greenway Master Plan with this Croy Canyon addition. In those public meetings, we heard overwhelming support for the preservation of the Croy Canyon property for wildlife, trails, and open space. And when this has been discussed in subsequent city council meetings, both council members and the mayor have verbally supported working with the Land Trust to preserve the Croy Canyon property. So in that regard, we wouldn't like this to feel like the Land Trust versus the chamber or the campground. We are really working with the city to honor those sentiments that we've heard from the public and from various city council members and from the mayor. So just a little background, the Wood River Land Trust was formed in 1994 to ensure that as our community grows and prospers, that places are preserved in perpetuity for open space and for wildlife that makes our valley such a unique place to call home. And as we've experienced unprecedented growth in the past year or more, balancing our local community housing needs, economic growth, and preservation of natural resources becomes even more important. The Land Trust recognizes that our community is growing, and providing space to support our local economy, such as a campground, is important. We also feel that preserving open space is important to our community and to our community's values, in addition to the wildlife and to the ecosystems that can't speak for themselves. The vast hillsides, hiking trails, views of wildlife, and the Big Wood River are all reasons why people live in and come to visit Hailey. And we feel like we can find a balance between growth and preservation and we welcome being part of that solution. As we've expressed in previous meetings, the Land Trust does not support a municipal campground on the city's Croy Canyon property. We feel that the intense visitation will have long-lasting impacts on the wildlife in our Simons Bower Preserve and the Croy Creek riparian ecosystem. And this is why in your packet you found a letter of intent for the Land Trust to purchase a conservation easement on the city's property that would allow for existing snow storage uses and preserve the remainder portion of the property. The value in our letter is based on a city's appraisal of the property, which is $375,000. A conservation easement value is less than the fully appraised value because the city would retain ownership of the property. The Land Trust would be purchasing the easement. And because this easement would be fairly restrictive to preserve the conservation values, we estimate that the financial value of the easement would be approximately 95% of that full value. This, of course, would need to be substantiated by a second appraisal, which would be specific to the easement that the Land Trust would pay for. We urge you to accept our letter of intent and vote to sell a conservation easement to the Land Trust. And in doing so, this important area will remain protected for our community that values its wildlife and its open spaces. Funds from this purchase could be used to pursue a campground in an alternative location. And the Land Trust would be happy to participate in public meetings to consider alternate possible locations. So thank you for considering to continue partnering with us on preserving Croy Canyon. And we know that you will vote in support of the values that are most important to our community and to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask council if they have questions at this moment. I think Jane or Mike, please understand, I recognize you are not opposed to camps. I recognize we're all doing the best we can to protect and preserve and enhance the area that we live in. I want to make sure we don't see you as at each other. Jane, Mike?
I actually wrote it down.
Again, Jane, you'll have to be real close.
Oh, thank you. I'm a short person. Mayor Burr and City Council. We are moving forward to a decision that has a huge impact on our community. As the summer has gone by and the need for this RV park campground has become even more critical, we have trailers and campers parking on our side streets, parking lots, and county roads, as we have nothing to offer to them. By providing this campground, we keep this from happening as well as protecting our wildlife and environment. There will be a camp post to make sure that fire and noise are not a danger. So by having a campground, you do protect your environment and your wildlife because it is a controlled environment. We will never have the property or grant of this magnitude again. It is something we need to do now, not later. The City Council has an obligation to consider the overall merit to all our community, not just a few. The Council will always face adverse response to some disagreement, no matter where or what it would be. I get that. I understand that. But we have to consider our whole community. There is just not enough reasons that this should not be put through. The community should come first. As for the offer from the Land Trust, I feel like the purchase amount does not begin to cover our loss. We are not only losing property, which we don't have to purchase, we're losing our grant, There is absolutely no way that we know that we'll ever get that grant money again. You can say it's there to apply for. We don't know that we're going to get it. If the council decides to go against this campground, the land trust should be required to reimburse us enough that we have money to purchase other property and to build that campground. And this should happen within the next year. I beg the city council to move forward with this. It is just such a no-brainer with what we have. One thing that I wanted to say, I just got back from Montana visiting my grandchildren, and I made an effort as I drove through little towns in Idaho to see what they had to offer in the way of camping. And Arco, who is a quarter of the size of our community, who is not the pathway to Sun Valley, has a beautiful campground right off the road. Every little community that I went through, no matter what size they were, had campgrounds. Some of them more than one. I've worked in this community for a long time. I worked for a lot of projects. Some have been agreed upon and some not. I have never suggested ever anything that I thought was not a merit to this community. So we need to get this done. We've got kids who can't have baseball games. We've got to look at a lot of different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Harry, are you next?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Harry Griffith, Sun Valley Economic Development. Our organization is in support of the proposed campground. One of the reasons is the economics. Jane indicated that. We've done some work based on very conservative assumptions that show that between fees for the campsites, the spend that would occur, and a very reasonable spend of around $33 per camper, with a 53% average occupancy in only the 8 months that it would take place. And taking into account the Parks grant of $710,000, some additional construction monies, and the employment of a campground manager, that's worth something in the order of $6 million over 10 years. That's a big number that you'd be saying no to. I also would like to add, we've just completed with Visit Sun Valley a transient inventory study of all the pillows throughout town, and we are still below where we were in the 90s. The balance of those new pillows are north. By rejecting the opportunity to put to bed 30-odd individual campsites with 2.5 people per campsite probably, you guys are giving up a lot of potential in terms of your businesses on Main Street. So there are very real economic indicators that I think would cause you to want to support this application. I would also like to emphasize, having worked with grants from government agencies for more than 10 years, a statement that was made in the last meeting that I spoke to the person at the Parks Department, and they're confident that we have another chance at this. I don't agree with that at all. We see that criteria change all the time. New projects come in, and what you've got in hand right now, you can't take for granted. You really need to look at that seriously. And giving up that kind of money, which would effectively put this in as an economic development driver for your community, I think would be foolish. Thank you.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, Marlon Beck. I'm the president of the Chamber Board of Directors. And several of you right here that I'd like to read you guys. The board of the Chamber of Hailey and the Wood River Valley support a seasonal mixed-use city-managed campground at the mouth of Troy Canyon. Campground at this location has been discussed by chamber members as well as political and nonprofit leaders for years, Hailey desperately needs the Troy campground for a variety of reasons. The Chamber and the Welcome Center alone receive thousands of inquiries about camping in or near Hailey each year. We currently have no answers, besides recommending unmanned dispersed camping in the canyon surrounding the community. This has undoubtedly increased issues with trash, fire, and wildfire that our region has been seeing rise dramatically in these areas. And having ties to Jackson Hole as well, and seeing what's going on there, especially with housing and things like that, it's out of control. People living in their cars, out canyons, all over the place. The amount of trash, feces, unmanned fires, it's incredible, and we're not far behind them. We're already on the path to that. The Croy Campground will financially support the city and local businesses. Besides directly bringing local option tax income from each book night, these visitors will also support the small businesses at the heart of our community. And Harry already spoke to the numbers even better than this, but Sun Valley Economic Development estimates it will bring in roughly $500,000 per year to the local economy. The Croy Campground will allow for direct messaging with visitors as we attempt to help people recreate responsibly and treat our home with respect. The Croy Campground is the best use of this space. Other possibilities zoned for this area will have much bigger impacts on wildlife and the environment. The Croy Campground is a safe option, as fire officials throughout Blaine County can attest. Manned and properly constructed campgrounds are the safest way to prevent camping-related wildfires, as has long been shown by campgrounds like Boundary in Sun Valley, or those at Redfish Lodge, or in our fellow Idaho tourist-based communities like McCall, Salmon, and Sandpoint. The Troy Campground will assure that Hailey can continue to host concerts, festivals, rodeos, as well as numerous youth and adult sporting events. These events not only support our tourist-based economy, they also bring joy to countless locals. Many of these events, like the touring rodeos and the Mountain Classic softball tournament, may not be possible in the near future without the Croy Campground. In closing, the main objective of the Chamber is to support our local businesses and provide the best possible experience for our out-of-town visitors. The campground meets both of these objectives. The Chamber and an overwhelming majority of our membership is strongly in support of the Croy Campground. And as a member of the community, born and raised in Lake County, I have 2 little boys, and I travel a lot. We do hockey, we do soccer, a lot of kids do baseball, and we can't afford to stay in hotels everywhere we go. It's expensive. It's very expensive. That $150, $200 a night for a weekend, and having kids of different ages where you have to split up sometimes and parents go different ways to do that. Some people can't or won't come to our community because they don't have this option. So this is a great option for them, and this is a way that we can control it, save our community, and not get steamrolled because they either are staying up north of Ketchum or they're driving out our canyons and finding a place to plop down. I've come across a lot of fires that were not put out, as well as other things that are not pretty, because of people not having a place to go. So I love our community, I want to preserve it too, and this is the best option.
I'm a little taller than Jane, so I'm Mike McKenna, 319, East Troy. As I've spoken numerous times on this, I'm not going to get into all the things we do for the community. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Chamber. I'm going to speak on behalf as a local husband and father of 2 who are 5th-generation locals here in the Wood River Valley. And I'm not just speaking on behalf of my children and myself and my neighbors. I am speaking on behalf of the community in general. One of the things you're asked to do to try to prove that the community is for this was to get a petition with very little effort. 1 location in 3 hours of kids sitting in front of James. We got hundreds of these signed. In fact, it was so easy, we stopped. I could get thousands of these if that's what you want. So, there is no doubt in my mind if this went to ballot, it would win by a landslide, and I am far alone from making that statement. as the kids said it, the kids who sat in front of James for 3 hours on a Wednesday and averaged one signature every 5 minutes from 1 to 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon in one location. The kids who I've coached said, Coach, this is easy. People want this. This is fun. And it did make me proud to see kids fighting for something that they know is not only good for them, but it's good for the future of our community. It made me proud. And they actually offered to do it more. And I said, no, you've proven the point. In 3 hours, they said one person said no. And a few people actually said, we don't know enough about this, let us look into it and we can come back and sign, which inspired me as a dad and as a coach to say, hey kids, this is how America works. These signatures, there's still some out there, but whatever I could collect as of today went in, because a few people would take them, like the co-ed softball folks, took some pages and went and signed them. They represent hundreds of people, primarily Hailey locals and voters, kids from 10 years old to 70 years old, as well as people in every town in our valley. And a few visitors who actually couldn't find camping came and signed for the kids too. Funny enough. One gentleman came up to me as I was going to check in on him. He said, are you the guy who has the kids out here? I said, I am. And he said, thank you. I lived in Hailey for like 30 years. I've retired and moved away. And now I spend my summers hosting campgrounds. And I've seen the positive impacts. Not only does Hailey desperately need this, but we become the first line of what they deal with. He goes, you get to teach people how to become outdoor people, how to become recreationalists, how to treat your community with respect. And with all the stuff that Marlon said, that is a huge aspect of this. And I don't need to get into all the details with fire and all that stuff. There are firemen who signed this, so I've tackled all those. We're not going to get into that. I just hope that you're going to say yes to this campground. And I understand, as a person who worked for the Land Trust and helped them deal with easements, and was part of the help fund of Colorado Village, and was in the Land Trust offices when we talked about saving this land and putting a campground there. And Scott Betcher, the executive director, told me to my face on numerous occasions. This is a 28-acre parcel. The campground takes up 4. This doesn't seem to be on the agenda, but I don't know why we're not saying, can't we have snow storage, a seasonal campground that financially supports us, is environmentally friendly, and allows us to message directly, and still save over 20 acres of land? I'm not sure why that isn't on the agenda, and I hope it would be. It's really important if you understand how these easements work, which I'm sure some of you do, they don't always go through. So if you guys decide to say no to this grant, and then the easement falls through, you're stuck holding the bag. And the most you can sell this for, looking at all legal documents, is for one home for 5 acres, which is worth probably more than $375. There's a 5-acre parcel going in Troy right now for $475,000. So you're already taking $100,000 less than the neighbor was asking for. But there is a way to make this a win-win-win. You can do the right thing for the community. You can save land, and everyone wins. And you guys can be the council that makes the difference. I have been talking about this campground in this location with leaders in this community since only one of you was on this council. And I care about this place, and I've been a passionate member of our community for almost 25 years. I'm going to be here fighting for things that are in our best interest when you got some of you are gone. And I hope that what happens is in years from now, that we look back on this and you see all these hundreds of people at the supermarket, at the post office, at an event, that we can look at you and say, thank you for doing the right thing for our community. Thank you for doing what is right for all of us. Thank you for voting for we and not me. So that's my spiel, and I hope you guys and pray that you will do the right thing. Thank you.
Yes. Vinny? Okay.
Mayor, are you looking for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, or what would be your preference for the next part of our hearing?
Council, how do you want to do this? I think we've heard.
I'd like to hear from anybody that wants to say anything.
In any order?
In any order, and unfortunately, we didn't give time constraints for these guys. We didn't say they were
I'm okay with that.
time
You gave
constraints, so
great
we
information.
have to just let it go at this point. Just to be fair.
Yep. That's fine.
I mean, please keep it succinct. Don't go on forever, because we can cut you off, I guess, but.
Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Dane Orzel, 77 Priestess Creek Road, and Martha and I had a phone conversation, and it also brought up a question. And the question was, what happened before this campground became such a critical issue? Did people and teams not come here then? I've never got an answer to that one. But what I brought up to Martha on the phone was that we have all sorts of schools with playing fields and showers, toilets, parking lots that sit empty a good portion of the summer, and I don't see why visiting teams cannot utilize this underused aspect of our community that's just sitting there. Porta potties, portable showers, got lots of softball fields for setting up tents. I don't know, there's an underused aspect there, and I shared that with Martha, and we talked about it for a bit, and I just want it to be part of public record. So anyway, thank you.
And I actually suggested that contact the school district and the school board.
And-
Because, I'm staying out of that one.
Oh,
But I would suggest that,
okay, I thought you were going to.
No.
Okay.
I gotta stay out of this
Okay.
as much as I can.
Well, I'd be glad to forward that, so.
I can answer
Well,
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you accepting comments from people on the phone as well, or?
Yes, we will. Someone at the microphone, would you just hold on? And then
Yeah.
if you will follow. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hello, Madam Mayor, City Council, everyone in the audience. My name is Nelson Mills. I live on Woodside Boulevard, and I feel very strongly about supporting this campground from two perspectives. One is the preservation of our local watersheds and our canyons. Two is fire prevention. From a watershed preservation standpoint, noxious weeds are a huge issue in our local canyons. The canyon right behind me in Woodside Boulevard is full of Scotch thistle. It is a nasty invasive plant. These canyons up above, they have a lot of noxious weeds, cheatgrass, spotted knapweed. I could go on and on about what's up there. Dispersed recreation spreads noxious weeds. Developed recreation in a 4-acre campground will stop the spread of noxious weeds better than dispersed recreation would. How do we solve that? Through spraying of noxious weeds or other weeds mitigation measures that we have. I know that it's a riparian area. We probably want to avoid spraying, but there are other methods we could use to prevent noxious weed spread, and it would stop dispersed recreation, which I said earlier spreads noxious weeds. From a fire prevention standpoint, I know we've hit on the point a lot here, but I'm going to say it. Developed recreation with a campground that has a concrete pad or gravel pad around a fire pit stops uncontrolled campfires. Dispersed recreation where the camper has a rock ring, or a lot of times not even a rock ring, spreads wildfire. We look at the fires we've had here in the past. They're caused by lightning. But what about the human-caused fires? Target shooting, which comes with dispersed recreation. Unattended campfires on public land, state endowment land, private land. If we develop a campground, have a nice pad, have gravel pits, we're going to stop a lot of fires. How can we do that? With the city parks department, with the fire department, with a campground host. It is very simple to stop these fires. So thank you for listening to me. That's all I got. But I feel super strong about this. There's a lot of great economic things that y'all have talked about. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. On the phone. You're next.
Oh, thank you. This is Dana Gross, 1031 Red Elephant Drive. So I've only been able to make it to one other meeting, and the folks that I heard and the letters that I was able to uncover, it doesn't sound to me like most people are necessarily arguing with a campground close to town. It's about the planning and the community involvement that was involved in the kind of siting of this campground. And the inappropriate place for a big campground right on Croy Road. So that's one thing. I would say this meeting in particular has been interesting that there's a kind of mixed messages about campers all over town. I'm not sure if that's because they're at a housing issue or we don't have campgrounds. I think that's something that we take offline for another discussion. I don't know that it has anything to do with this campground, to be honest, that there's campsite or there's campers just dispersed all over the city. The third thing I would say is that I've applied for 1 million grants. I've gotten many of them. Same grant opportunities year after year, and they don't change that much. And there are opportunities to do this again. So if we don't get the money this year, if it doesn't work out, there's a 99% chance that we could still do a better job next year and get the funding. And for a different place, better planned, more community involvement, all of that. And then the fourth thing I would say is that I'm just shocked that the land trust has been so, what's in it for them? I mean, they've been really helpful in this, and an easement is not a no, they still have to maintain the easement in perpetuity, forever. The land trust has responsibility. And I just want to say I'm really happy that we have a land trust in the community that is willing to step up and help us in these situations. So I think we need to just all, as many people have said, take a step back, relook at the whole situation, take a deep breath, and replan it out. Because there's clearly a lot of emotion involved here and not the best solution on the table.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Mark Caker. I'm at 25 Pioneer View Drive, Hailey, Idaho. My address is Hailey, Idaho, even though I live out Croy Canyon. And I'd like to say, first of all, that I love here. It's my home. I've lived here for almost 40 years. I've had my lot out there since 1988. And since I've had that lot, I've been evacuated due to fires twice. My lot burned once. I've watched a number of fires out there. Fire danger is a big problem. Some people think that it doesn't happen if it's an organized campground, but I'd be very concerned with the way the wind blows into this county. It's interesting to me that finally at this last meeting there's a few more people from the city of Hailey speaking up in support of the campground. However, I would like to say that I've been opposed to it for a long time. You know that. I spent one whole day talking with 50 people in China Gardens, Little Indio, and across from Hot Porter Park. And when I spoke to 50 different residences, they were 100% opposed to it. They were opposed to it because of concerns about fire, traffic along the road past Hot Porter Park, the narrow bridge, impacts on traffic further out Croy Canyon, a number of reasons. I also had an opportunity to speak with the campground host at the Stanton's Crossing campground. She couldn't believe that they would consider it, and her concerns were that she deals with on a daily basis, usually the children of the people in the campgrounds riding ATVs all over, back and forth into town. It was a big problem for her. She was always having to worry about people with fires. And amazingly, she said her biggest problem is people get drunk and start shooting their guns. I wish I could have gotten the lady down here. They like to shoot fish in the river with their guns. And so those were problems that she dealt with every single day as a campground host. Anyway, I've talked with every resident in Croy Canyon. Most of these people are from Croy Canyon, and we are adamantly opposed to this campground. We're not opposed to a campground. I mentioned that in my last presentation, the site that the city owns on Airport Way, and I would love an opportunity to go out there with you again and show you that it's actually a really nice site. There's places along that road, along There's places along the road where, I'm trying to lose my words here, where you could move a fence back along Broadford Road and have campsites there. There's always already a plan for the walking path. I wouldn't suggest you put vehicle access to that campsite along Broadford Road. Use Airport Way so that they can access it via a stoplight where it's safe. But you've got an excellent site there. And then the comment that you can't get the grant back is really not true. We've spoken with Adam Strawinger, I apologize if I mispronounce his name, with the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation. But when we talked with him, he said, we've got $5 million in our account right now. If they apply for a grant again, they'll get it. It's a no-brainer. They want to give the money away. Without making it personal or anything, I'd like to say that Mike McKenna had a conversation with my wife where he accuses us of hating children because we didn't want to campground. So my apologies.
That is totally inappropriate.
My apologies, but it was a comment that we got.
Don't go there, just don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Would you drop the name off? Would you drop the name off of the campus that you mentioned and contact information?
I will
would
try
really
to find
like-
out. I will try to find out that person's name. She's actually a client in my clinic.
I would
she just
like
started
very
talking
much to
about
talk to
Yeah.
her and other camp hosts that were mentioned this
Yeah,
evening.
well,
So without a name and address and a contact, it's just, thanks.
So I appreciate your giving me an opportunity to talk once more, and I apologize for any inappropriate comments that I made. But
Dr. Aker, quit while you're ahead.
yeah, thank you. Somebody else.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Stephen Garman, come to you as a personal, as not a commissioner tonight, but I'm one of 3 Wood River Fire Commissioners, as you know. We have presented to you a pretty comprehensive letter.
And who signed that letter?
3 Wood River Fire Commissioners, myself, Dennis Kavanaugh, and Jay Bailey.
So as you are speaking and referring to that letter,
That was presented. And,
of course, no, I'm clarifying the fact that you have already spoken as a commissioner through that letter, which we received, and last time, which you read to us.
Correct.
So when you speak as an individual, I'm afraid that carries no weight because your commitment was through the commissioners in that letter.
May I speak
The fact
as an
that you're-
individual?
I'm sorry?
May I speak as an individual? Without being a commissioner?
You know it carries no weight? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, excuse me. No comments. What the hell?
I don't want you to get rude with any of us. I'm trying to clarify a legal position that this man has given this council through an official letter by the commission. It is very hard, once you've done that, to walk away and say, but I didn't mean that. I'm going to talk to you as me. We know his point of view. We know that he wrote us a letter and read it on behalf. If he's got a different point of view, geez, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I guess I don't have a different point of view. I was going to speak to you as a resident of 17 Rodeo Drive.
Go ahead.
But
Go ahead, please. Please.
You stand behind that letter, and that's appropriate. This is a fire danger that is unacceptable. There's a single point access for fire service in and out of there. And the Wood River Fire Rescue is solely responsible for fire suppression in EMS and such in that canyon. It's not the City of Hailey. It's not the City of Hailey Fire Department. They assist us. We assist them. But as a resident, you get a fire truck and you can't just stuck on that bridge, it's game over. So those are my personal comments. Thank you for allowing me.
You're very welcome.
Can I speak?
Yes, please, go ahead. You can talk to our attorney later. I can see you're still upset.
No, I'm fine.
My name's Gray Young. I'm here with my wife, Ann Young. I live at 43 Pioneer View Drive. I didn't get a chance to speak in the last meeting. That's too bad, but here we are. You know, I am not an expert in fire suppression. I'm not an expert in weed control. But I am a fairly intelligent individual of some experience. And I will tell you, council, as a group, that this is not a good idea to put this campground where it is. You have other options. If you don't, you can find some. The idea that in the last meeting that there should be another alternative. If there's a huge economic issue here, that this town, this amazing town, with all of its values and all the things that you can do if you're here, cannot hold itself together without a small little campground that operates 8 months a year and damages a wildlife sanctuary that causes fire risk to everybody in Croy, everybody right along the Wood River, and somebody in the town, many people in the town of Hailey. I don't get it. I don't get that. You drive across that road. We drive it across the little bridge across the Wood River every day. And by God, there are little kids walking along by the bridge. There's almost no room. Now you put campers and you put trucks and you put people who move it up at a campground. Don't tell me you don't think that's going to happen, because it will. You put them across that little bridge, you put the mothers with the carts, the baby carriages. You've seen them, you know what's going on here. That will cause an accident. It may kill someone. I can't tell you percentage-wise what that's going to be, but use your brains here, please. I mean, I don't want to insult you. I'm not trying to do that. It's just common sense that this is the wrong place for this. Moose were down there this year. They went through our yard up there. They used that area. Elk are there. Deer and antelope play there. I mean, that's to paraphrase the song. The point is this. Let's please, as a resident of this area, you've only been there a couple of years. I helped build the airstrip for jets when I was in college, so I'm familiar with this area. But let's not put it here. Please, just because you got $614,000, whatever it is, $1,000 grant from the Recreational Vehicle Association, crying out loud. Don't take that. That's a carrot on a stick. Would you please just think about this some more? And let's regroup. We'll support a campground someplace else.
Where is that?
Where is it? Well, I guess. Oh, yeah, sorry.
No,
Madam Mayor,
you gotta look at me.
as far as I'm concerned, there's got to be brownfield areas that the city can get access to. It's much more appropriate to take a brownfield area like around the airport where there's already commercial development and put a campground there than it is to basically to destroy something that's been there and been wild for time immemorial and put us at risk. One last little comment. 2 years ago we got here. Last fall, the fall of that year, some guy was out burning a field or something, and he got out of control and the wind was blowing like crazy. And a very large fire started. And we were probably a mile from it. And that scared the daylights out of us. And luckily the BLM got involved and the local fire people got involved. And they put it out. There were no houses burned. But that canyon, the wind blows down it, it blows up it, it blows across it. And if something happens that is untoward at this campsite, and it starts going, it could be a really tragic thing. So let's think about another place. That's all I'm asking. And thanks. Sorry, we got a little out of control.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay.
Good evening. Roger Riccardi, 336 Croy, and I previously had a historic home for 20 years in Hailey. I have twin 3.5-year-old sons, so I do care deeply about the future of sports. The other evening, I took the time to go hike up Carbonate. I said, let me take a fresh look at what we're looking at here. And I just couldn't imagine that our city leaders would say, let's impact such a beautiful entry to our town, the fantastic nature preserve, and have generators, air conditioning units, ATVs in this very sensitive area. I've heard the comments and the pleas of, we can't have the volleyball tournament, we can't have the softball tournament. So I did a little research today, and I looked up the Chamber of Commerce information on camping. It says these campgrounds are located outside the heavily populated areas. But almost all the campgrounds they mentioned are north. There's the Haysburg campground south of here. There's the Peekaboo Angler RV Park south of here. There's the Stanton Crossing campground south of here. None of this is mentioned on the Chamber of Commerce site. So they do have an answer. If somebody wants to come to a tournament, where can they go? They can go 15 minutes away and camp. I also think it's a very lucid comment we heard earlier that has anybody asked for a conditional use permit, a 1-day use permit, a 3-day use permit for a festival, a volleyball tournament? Who would say no to that? I think you would support that, and you would have 80% of the benefit of camping without the risks that have been put forth before you. So I hope you take the proposal from the Land Trust, preserve this beautiful site, and if you find necessary, look for a better alternative. We've been working on this for a year, okay? So to flip out a $6 million study here in the 12th hour, I think it's shameful. I'd like to have the chance to see it.
Hi, Michael Frith, 230 West Walnut. Campground's a great idea, but I want you to think hard about what a special place that is down there. Go on down there. I live right near it. I've been going there for 40 years. It's a unique piece of property. That's what's hard about seeing a campground. You've got a place there. You've got Simon's Bower. You've got the Land Trust. You've got Lions Park. Put some money into Lions Park and talk about economic return. Make that one of the most unique acreages next to any small town in America. And then watch the people come and stay. The idea of economics, I opened the American in Hailey. I'm hearing numbers here that are saying that this campground with 33 sites, 8 months a year, is putting the same amount of money into a 64-room hotel. I find that hard to believe. The risk reward, the risk of trash, human waste, oil, gas, and riparian area. But most important, you got kids, you want to do something for your kids. I came here because of the wild places that are around. If you can go to that area and hang out, and your children and your grandchildren can go see moose there, see wild animals, have a place right in town, 2 rivers, a marshland. It's incredible. You can put the campground in McCurcher Park. There's a dump site there already. It's made for it. That's my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for all the meetings and the public hearing, the opportunity dedicated to the community to tell how different people feel. So the many people have already talked and offered.
Did you get his name?
Emanuele Bobbio, 151 Little India. Many people have already talked about why they think that area should be protected and value for the community, for tourism, for the wildlife, of that parts of preserving that parts. I would like just to offer my expertise, given that I have I've worked for more than 10 years in policy evaluation and economic forecasting for the European Central Bank, European Commission, Bank of Italy, Italian government, and several organizations here in the United States. So I've done a lot of forecasting. Now, I've done economics, so since the beginning many people have asked about an evaluation of the economic impact of the campground, and myself included. And then I've made an economic evaluation. My numbers are a little bit different from the numbers that have been presented, that have been talked about today. So I wish I could have seen those analyses earlier, just because in the interest of the community, we should sort of find agreement of what the economic value of this campground is, if the economic value is the main motivation for the campground, or one of the main motivations for the campground. Now, the numbers that I came to is approximately $324,000. I believe, so from what I heard today, but I should see your analysis better, and I'm open to, compare my analysis with your analysis and find an agreement of what might be sensible estimate. I believe that the main difference is that in my estimate, I'm accounting for the fact that a certain fraction of those people are coming anyway to the valley, and therefore I'm subtracting a certain amount. So basically, the difference between Alfamigos 70,000 and my 324,000, I believe is that I'm taking into account the fact that, say, 50% of these people are already coming. And so what they are spending in the valley, they're already spending. So that's not something, so that's not an additional contribution that comes from building the campground. And what I assume is instead that because if the city builds a campground, then there could be an additional, say, 50% of people, which is what I have in my calculations, that would come to the valley, and that could be additional revenues for the valley. Of those 324,000, approximately one-third could be, a little bit less than one-third could be revenues for the city. So that could be approximately a little bit above $100,000, actually. Around $100,000 would be the revenues that the city could earn from the campground. So then the issue becomes also whether that amount, and then the estimate for the campground fees, I base it on the campground that is up north towards Ketchum. So then one consideration is also whether these $100,000 would be enough for the city to maintain the campground, pay utilities, and pay a custodian, which, as I understood, is one of the safeguards that could be put in place against fire, against excessive noise, against all those things. And so yes, in the end, but that's a personal consideration that is not based on numbers. So those are the numbers that I think are factual. Personal consideration, I'm opposed to the campground. And I believe that in terms of also economic value, I have no numbers to back that up. Extending the preserve and making this preserve into perhaps possibly the best and most beautiful preserve in southern Idaho would actually have not only a value for the community, which to me comes first, but also an economic value. So people who come here, they wouldn't just be coming here and then to sleep and then come somewhere else to spend. But they would also come here because here there are amenities. And the nature preserve is probably the best amenity that Hailey has.
Next.
Hi, my name is Jerome Cheer. I live at 46 Willow Creek Lane, and thank you for hearing us tonight.
I'm vehemently opposed to this campground. I drive that road daily, and it's a crapshoot. There's so much traffic, kids on bikes, women with strollers, dogs, the bridge is at Hourglass, and it just seems a really inappropriate place to plop 33 sites for RVs. Is that going to solve the dispersed camping? No, it's not. I mean, people are going to camp out there anyway. There's just so many reasons why I believe it's a bad idea. And you've heard of all of the residents speak that live out there. Fire danger, traffic. It's a beautiful preserve. I'm against this. Let's preserve what we have, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone online that is waiting to speak?
Yes, hi. I'm online. This is Karen Lindholm, and I'm at 21 Rodeo Drive. And I think hopefully you've been enlightened by more information for this evening, but I again oppose the campground for the reasons that most of the people have been telling you for all of the times we've met. So I again am on record for opposition to the campground. And I think you should find another place for the campground and keep the deal with the land trust and the preserve and keep it for the people who pay the taxes and vote for you, please. And that's it. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Glenn Groh. I'm at 78 Pioneer View Drive, Coral Canyon. I, too, drive the road every day. This week I took some photos of all the elk right there. I can pass them around. Just want to show everybody. Literally on the campground, proposed campground property throughout. It's an amazing wildlife corridor for many reasons. I'm not a wildlife biologist, but I do have a camera, I do have eyes, and it's a substantial thoroughfare for a lot of animals. In addition to fire and all the reasons that have been stated, I'm against the campground in this area. Would you like to see these photos?
Sure.
Please. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Barb Shearer. I live at 46 Willow Creek Lane in Hailey. I have lived here for 36 years. I'm a registered nurse, and I have worked in the valley for 33 years. And I have lived out in Croy Canyon for almost 20 years now. And as a nurse, I just want to walk everybody through. So you've got big, huge RVs. I have an RV myself. It's a little R-Pod. It's only 16 feet. But we are talking these huge RVs. Number one, the traffic problem on Main Street, Hailey, since everything has changed, is out of control. You're going to have 33 big RVs making a left off of Highway 75 up Croy Canyon. They're going to be going through that four-way stop sign. Then they're going to come down to Hot Porter Park, where there's a bunch of little kids playing, and dogs, and all kinds of activities there. I've seen people in the road there all the time, getting in and out of their car. Then you're driving right across from a neighborhood where people live. And if you live there, would you want big, huge RVs going by your house every day? And then you've got Little Indio, as you keep going, you've got Little Indio on the right. So you've got neighborhoods right there on that road that have to look at these huge RVs going back and forth. Then you keep going and you come to Carbonate, a huge trailhead, which is packed with cars and bikes and people going in and out and dogs. On the other side, you have Lions Park.
another huge trailhead with lots of traffic and people, and then you've got people riding their bikes on Croy Road because it's all trailheads out there, mountain biking. Now, I don't see where an RV park fits in based on just those reasons alone, not to mention everything else that has been stated. And I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I am firmly opposed. And I drive that road every day. Amen.
My name is Rich.
May I speak? Oh, sorry.
Someone's at the mic, but you'll be next.
I'll try to do it quickly. I'm Rick Sanders. We live at 59 Crescent Street Road. And
Get a tiny bit
oh,
closer.
sorry. Take there. How's that? Anyway, there's 2 points. One is I read the BL, got involved with listening to all the BLM campgrounds that they're trying to put around in the valley. They're doing several of them, by the way. But they because the city of Bellevue and the county commissioners asked the BLM not to put it into a residential area. If you look at the BLM report, summary report was just put out, I think, a year ago, August, I think it was. It actually says in there that they agreed to do it because they did not want to be anywhere close to any residential neighborhood. You go out to Lee's Gulch or Townsend's Gulch, there's homes out there. But the campground was much farther away, they're proposing. This is 3/10 of a mile from just across the bridge to all that housing. And as I was talking to Ron Bateman, and he was saying, they couldn't even get out there. It blows so hard there, it hit those cockpits, and you're endangering a lot of people. The other thing I did is I spoke, and I got a lot of information from my insurance agents. I know because we've had a family house in California. It's never been a fire ever close to it. We've had it for 85 years, 4 generations of our family. And they just canceled our insurance. All throughout California, it is extremely difficult to get any kind of fire insurance now. And I know from personal experience because we couldn't find anybody. So you can now, the state of California has the FAIR program, which if you can't find anything, and we're talking about Pasadena, California, we're talking about Wild Friends in Newport Beach. These aren't high-risk areas. The Insurance Institute of America actually puts out puts out where the most homes located. And that's in Idaho, the highest, they're the number 2 state, the highest number of states in high-risk areas, extreme fire areas. And I found out what the rating is for Croy Canyon. It's an 8. If there's an 8 out of 9, you don't get insurance. We don't have a state-run program. So if you don't get, the insurance, the loss of insurance, I asked when I renewed my policy a year and a half ago, one of the questions on it with Chuck is, are you located within a 5-mile radius of camp? If the answer is yes, I can lose my insurance. I don't get it. I have to go somewhere else. So the insurance issue, if you start reading about it all throughout California, I can tell you, it's just, and through lots of other places all through the West, and Idaho is not immune to that. We just haven't had the structural fires, thank God. It was amazing work that our fire personnel did. So I just wondered, if you lose insurance, they call your mortgage, just to let you know. And that's a pretty extreme thing. And to expose anything that increases fire risk, no matter how beautiful you think that firefighters go out there and risk their lives every day, and I witnessed it with burning just at the end of my street there, and the flames were coming over there. They did amazing work. But the problem is that they can't prevent the wildfire in a high-risk area, and I do think there's another alternative. And I'm more than happy to find out alternatives. This is a really important thing for the city, that we should go work together to find a solution, not sit here and put potentially people in danger. And they're very close. They're only 3/10 of a mile away. Thank you.
online, you're next.
Thank you. My name's Therese Magner. We live at 121 North Colorado Gulch Road. The people have been speaking for 7 months to the City Council, to the Wood River Land Trust. We appreciate where we are today, and for all of the reasons, plus many others that Rick just mentioned, we hope that the City Council will make the right decision today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How much more, Council?
I need to use the restroom.
Should we take a 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute recess?
Please, God.
Okay. Got on with that.
There's also lots of extra chairs if anyone is back there who wanted to sit.
Well, no,
You know what?
And I was just like,
That is
it's crazy.
And you see somebody, and sometimes you feel like, if you ever bought like a getting out,
That's next
Okay, we're all back, pretty much. So I'm wondering, are you comfortable, council, bringing it back here and opening a discussion? Because I have a very good sense. And remember that we have two public projects that represent different points of view, but that are each intended to enhance this community and the neighborhoods and the people that live here and guests. And we're all trying to come to a solution that benefits this community, and we're striving to do that. And yes, it's taken us a while, and yes, we've had to talk this over in public forums, and here we are. And hopefully, depending on the council, we will come up with something. And I have no idea what it's going to be. So, I really don't. Who would like to start this?
I'll start, Mayor. I want everyone to take a big breath really quickly, because, you know. So, we've been talking about this for months. I think it's our job as council members to think about it thoroughly, thoughtfully, to hear everyone's opinion, to listen and actually hear them, not to agree to everyone's opinions, but hear and think about them. I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked during these meetings about my feelings for and against. I've said that I want to see it in operational land trust, that I think conservation would be a great use of this property. I've also disagreed with many of the concerns about the actual impact of the campground that's been brought forth by various community members. And I want everyone to know that I have not made up my mind prior to this meeting. And I don't think anyone at this table has. As we keep learning more and hearing new perspectives, it's important that we evaluate all of those. So, with all of that said, I think everyone should recognize it's not an easy decision, and it's not an easy decision, and it's contentious, and there are lots of people with strong views, because there are, in my view, two good proposals, two good options, among many others. If there weren't two good options, we would have made a decision months ago. Everyone on all sides had valid points of concern, of support, I think there's a conservation perspective, right? And just simply not developing land is a very strong conservation measure for that piece of property. And that will have the least impact on elk, have the least impact on traffic for that piece of property. But it should be noted that the rest of Corey Canyon has 35 parcels currently developed or currently platted for residences, with the ability to subdivide more. And so when we're looking at, well, okay, so a campground would have an impact, right? Well, compared to what else? Compared to all the other impacts, compared to all the other development that may or may not occur out there. And this is not a decision that's going to be made in a vacuum, and it will not only affect this parcel. The conservation discussion also favors the campground in a lot of ways. I think it will relieve some of the pressure on our side canyons on dispersed camping. We had a fire out quickly this spring from dispersed camping. It will also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It'll also give people a place to recreate. It's infrastructure that supports recreation that people are doing and will continue to do and will increase in use. So trash, illegal fire lanes, dumping waste from their trailers, all, illegal roads, all of those things can be alleviated by proper infrastructure. And so I'm very much in support of a campground. A lot of this discussion is about should the campground be in this location. And when we first started this, I thought, yes, it's a good location. I'm still on the fence right now. I think initially I had some issues with the Croy Canyon residents and the information that was being presented at these meetings because a lot of it was untrue. Or there would be fire concerns and we'd say, okay, we're not going to have fire rings. And they would still say, well, fire is still an issue. And that to me felt disingenuous. But more concerning with the way this came about, it was not that the land trust approached us to conserve this piece of property because they felt like it had conservation value. It was in reaction to county residents saying that they did not want a campground on this parcel. And then last week, as many of us are aware, there was organized opposition to the campground. They had an attorney out of Twin Falls, and Gary Slate. And I had a conversation with him. He called me yesterday and asked me, why don't we just sell this to a developer? And that was really telling from the perspective of where the Croy Canyon residents that organized to protect the canyon were coming from, because it didn't seem like they were really concerned, or at least their attorney wasn't concerned with conservation. Now, that may be true, but conservation is still an important issue for this piece of property, and we can still think about the impacts. Think from a development perspective, 4-acre campground on a 28-acre parcel, that the rest of the parcel can be protected from development, is a really minimal impact, especially when it's temporary, or when it's seasonal for 8 months out of the year. I have concerns about fire and all development in this valley, but I don't see any evidence. Blue River Rural Fire District that came out opposed didn't provide any evidence. There is no other data that said municipal campgrounds increase the risk of wildfire. As far as I can tell, that's a theory that's been presented by people against it to justify not approving the campground, but it has not been supported. And in a lot of ways, it will be decreased by getting people into places where you're either not having a campground, or camping, or having a campfire in a fire pit. I think we also need to be aware that this is a huge opportunity for the city. Lots of our residents, people that we were elected to represent, want a campground in our city. And for the benefit of Hailey and Wood River, I think we need that. I love municipal campgrounds. I've used a number of them all throughout the state. And it's a great amenity for a city to have. So I'm really interested to hear what the other council members think about a campground at this location. I know theoretically we could say no. We could apply for another grant. We could try to find another parcel. But that's not guaranteed. And part of it feels like we're just kicking the can down the road and saying, well, it's someone else's problem to build camping around here, not ours. And I also see that we have the opportunity to do it right now. And so, yeah, I think we should be seriously considering it. Or at least come up with a really good idea for planning down the road so that we can provide this amenity for a community that's desperately needed. A lot of the opposition has come from people that we do not represent. And a lot of people on the petition are folks that we do represent and that vote for us, and I think that's an important distinction to make and to acknowledge.
I just have a couple of questions for you and stuff. Maybe you can help me. So we got the grant. What's the time frame for that grant to be used?
We have several years to use the grant on exactly as proposed.
So 2 years?
Yes.
From the time that we got it, or?
I believe it would be from the time we accepted. They gave us a 60-day extension, which would be till the end of August. The last day of August is the day we need to respond by.
Of this month?
Of this month.
Okay, and then we have 2 years to actually use that money.
Yes, approximately, yes. Two construction seasons.
And then another question, who would build this campground?
I think our anticipation was that it was going to be a combination of city crews and contractor crews.
Okay, and do we have a time frame on possibly how long it would take to build this campground?
We did have a timeline put together in the campground application.
It would be a full construction season, possibly part of another. So if we were to start it, it would take, for instance, if we were to build next year, it would take most of next year's construction season. We try to get the vegetation reestablished and so forth, and it'd be the following spring before we would be able to open or do anything with that.
Okay, and Brian, who would be building this? What part of the city?
It was a mixture of resources. We had quite a bit of resources from the city, largely the street department would be doing it. We had the equipment we have, and then we'd be using contract labor for some of the finer detail work.
Okay. And then would there be water out here at the campground?
There was proposed to be an on-site well that we'd be using to fill the 2 dish stations, so minor water available, plus maybe some drip lines for the vegetation to get established in between campgrounds.
And a cistern.
Oh, and we also had a cistern planned for a fire, a couple thousand, after down 1,000 gallons, it wasn't after that, but a subsurface tank full of water for the fire department to draft away.
I just have a couple questions, and then someone else can talk anymore.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Some of the guys that are collecting these signatures are kids that I coach. It's a little disappointing to hear claims brought on to different people. Things like, I'm never going to shop at your store again. I don't know that those things reflect the humanitarian lifestyle that y'all chose to move here for. I took a drive down this road yesterday, as well as Deer Creek, to just really get a strong sense of what this place is. And residents of Croy Canyon, you guys have something very magical out there. I'm starting to think of situations where you have something that is beautiful that you want to preserve. You stand up and oppose anything that comes your way. That's the nature of preserving something, right? And what you have out there is worthy of preserving, for sure. That's why the Wood River Land Trust has ponied up, if you will, and become sort of a partner in that same way. You guys have strong representation, strong leadership, and I think you guys should be totally proud of that. I think Sam said it best, that one of the hardest parts of this is that this is a hard decision. If this was an easy decision, it would have been made months ago. But we're in a position here where we're choosing 2 sides, and I don't know that that's necessarily fundamentally where I would be. I try to choose the side of the winner a lot of times. That's why I'm a Yankees fan. But you have to consider the win-win-win possibilities here. This is a 28 acres, and we're asking for 4 of these to be places that could be brought in and used by people that are going to share in the glory of this preserve, right? Share in the glory of this preserve, just like we share our valley with each other, right? That is what humanitarians do. They share things. And that's what I kind of propose to everybody, right? I mean, there's an identity crisis here. On one hand, are we the West that says, how the heck did you get here, and why are you here? It would look like, why are you driving down this road? You've never been down here. I know this road. I've been down here. This is my road. Or are we going to be the people who are going to have a place to explain what this is. And I think that there's a perfect opportunity to explain what that preserve is, share it with people from out of, and celebrate what you guys have. It would need a host, and I have a very large star marked next to that host because we've talked about that. That person is an advocate for this community. That person is an advocate for responsible camping. That person is very important. Unfortunately, Hailey does not have one of those people employed right now. The question making some of these decisions, who's going to maintain it, who's going to manage it. Wood River Land Trust manages and maintains properties very well. That's a likely partner in this situation here. Okay? But there's one piece away from having a great host that can share this, and I think these are all reasonable considerations. I'll leave it at that before I get too emotional.
Well, I want to also recognize the difficulty in this decision. It is stressful and challenging. And I feel incredibly mixed on many levels. I want to keep the extreme viewpoints to the side because I think the extreme viewpoints don't help us. I'm trained in science. I'm a wildlife biologist. I worked professionally for many, many years, working on threatened and endangered species. And I see the great value in preservation. And I do think that is a way to share this space. It doesn't have to be campers. It can be preservation and education and pathways that walk through it. I deeply want a campground for our community, and there is the rub. We don't have a spot. I would like to see us, if we vote tonight and turn down this offer, and thank you, Robin, for doing an incredible job with a grant that's probably not so easy to get. I do think we'd be able to get it again. I've written grants as well. I do think we would probably be able to get it again. Although if you're rejecting it first, there's a question like, they rejected it, why would we give it to them again? I don't know. But I tend to believe that we would get it again. I tend to think that campgrounds are not great in neighborhoods, wherever they are, inside a neighborhood. I wish there was an easy answer that there's land sitting out there because I really strongly want a campground for our town. I don't know about the numbers. I'm not an economist. I listened and I appreciate the two numbers that were tossed out and understand those assumptions. So thank you, because I'm a scientist. I understand the assumptions and all that's built into that. I guess I'm also struggling with how this all came down. I guess I wish that we knew it was going to be so, we had foresight to see how controversial it was going to be, and that we started with more inclusivity into the decision from the beginning. And I'm sorry that we didn't do it that way. I don't think, we saw this grant and there was a deadline and we jumped at it, which is often a very smart thing to do, to go after grants when they're available. And I'm sorry it turned out like this for all of us in this room. I really am deeply sorry that it's caused so much heartfelt turmoil within us, because we're a good community. And I want us to care about each other. And I know emotions are strong. And that's why we're so extreme in our viewpoints when we get up and we talk about it or say things that maybe we didn't mean to say. And I definitely don't necessarily agree with all that's been said. And We all come from our own hard place and mental place and whatever our abilities are to take in the information. I guess I could vote now, or I could say where I'm leaning. I really hope that if we decide not to do it in this place, the campground, that we really work as a community to find another location. I hope you're genuine out there, those that said that they could help. I have always argued strongly since I've been on council in favor of restoring that whole site from Lions Park, the confluence of Croy and Big Wood. And I truly want that to happen. I want that to happen with all my heart, because I think that will become an incredible place. The wetlands are not doing that well out Croy. Have you noticed? They're dying. Why are they dying? It may be heat, but it's mostly water. It's mostly not enough water because not enough water gets out to Croy from the wetlands that could be, that once were. And that's because it's ditched and it's straightened and we really, and you know, Lions Park, I don't know how many years ago it was that I argued against the softball team. I'm sorry, softball team, I didn't want to expand the softball field because I want that to be restored. And I want the floodplain to connect again and remove the fill that used to be the dump. And I want us to get to that. So I guess I lean towards preserving this place. Because I think the connection all the way through from the Big Wood to the confluence and out Croy, if we can preserve the whole place, can really be a more deeply special place and much better for habitat for wildlife. While it's good now and it's beautiful, it's really not to its potential at all. I don't know if I've just shared my vote with you, but that's how I mean. And I really, really, really do want to work on a campground. And I think we can get there as well. I really do.
So the options before this council, one.
Hey, Mayor.
Yeah?
You have Heidi.
I just had a couple more questions for Lisa.
Sorry.
So Lisa, is there anyone else, do we have to work with the county in any aspect to actually acquire and get this campground?
We have to go through a conditional use permit process with Wayne County.
Okay. And anything with, Brian, this kind of goes to you, safety on Bullion Street, the bridge access, anything that would...
Nothing would compromise the campground operation.
Okay.
The bridge is only 2 lanes. Obviously, it'd be nice to widen it, have bike paths and so forth, things like that. But as it operates right now, it's adequate for a 2-lane road.
Okay.
Technically, that's wrong.
Sir,
Is there?
That is wrong.
sir,
Croy Creek is not a 2-lane road. Ask the county roads office.
That's okay.
Sir.
That's okay.
That's why there's no money down there.
Hey, tell me when you're on.
Jesus. That's garbage. That's garbage.
Is there any plan for bike path along either the campground or all of Croy or portions of it?
There's been a lot of discussion for a bike path from the campground area or actually out past Burn Mountain, Maine. When that subdivision plat was approved by the county quite some time ago, 20-foot frontage easement was reserved for a bike path easement. So it would have been contemplated for quite some time. Currently, nothing has been applied for a grant, and there's currently no funding for it. But the concept of a bike path out there has been discussed over.
Lisa, can the grant funds be used for part of that, for this portion of the city owns?
For the bike path, unfortunately, no, they were very specific with us that we could not use this grant for a bike path. And then the other thing, Heidi, is that the county has a land capacity study where they've studied all the vacant parcels left everywhere in the county, but could be segregated by candidate person. Wishes to get that data.
So just understanding the information, kind of both sides to this equation. I understand the business side, and I understand Croy Canyon resident side. I'm not going to speak in tongues and kind of go, but I do understand both sides. To me, I believe, and I'm just going to tell you, I believe the best interest for this is to preserve it. The wildlife need an area. And I'm not,
It's hard.
and I feel really strongly that this is what we need to preserve. That's me. I understand the economic side of it, and I do support getting a campground somewhere else. But we cannot keep taking land from everything, or the reason that we moved here is not going to be here. So for me, I'm sorry, I'm emotional about this, but I think the wildlife deserves a chance, and so I'm definitely up for preserving it.
So the options before this council, one is kicking it down the road, which I don't want to do. I think we have to end up with something tonight. We decide whether to proceed with the grant acceptance, build the campground and go, or decide whether or not to move forward with Riverland Trust's letter of interest regarding the 22 acres, or no.
I have one question to the land trust. And that is in the letter presented. The letter presented, I know John Seiler, your lawyer representing you, said this is in no way an offer or something else, some other word he used. Could you explain, like, we have a deadline, and I worry a little bit about that. I believe your intention is true and just and all of that. But please just explain that piece as we move forward here tonight. Thank you.
Sure. Amy Trujillo, Liver of the Land Trust. We have every intention of working with the city on purchasing a conservation easement. Some of that language is legal language that, we've talked with the city attorney about. We need to get approval of the final purchase price with the city and all of that. So just know that we are fully committed to purchasing it, given that we have an appraisal that justifies the conservation easement price.
Yeah, and my only concern is why we fell through. For whatever reason, I don't know what those reasons are out there, but that little clause gives me a little bit of pause. And I believe that it won't. I really do. I mean, you have proven yourself throughout in so many instances in this valley, which is why we appreciate the land trust so much.
Yeah, I guess I would say we've talked with the city staff a lot about how we agree that the city needs to have a fair price for the easement. We agree that we want the city to be able to maintain their use of the snow storage site and access to it. I think we have a good relationship in terms of trying to find mutually agreeable goals and have every confidence that we can make something work.
And would there be any issues with the bike path going through the property?
No, it's part of the plat. It'd be consistent with our goals for the property too.
And is the conservation easement, sorry.
I just was wanting, Chris wanted to add something before.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would have to add is that we negotiated that letter of offer with the understanding that historically the Land Trust has been a fantastic partner of the cities, the community, and that we have every faith that when they make a promise like this, while it might not be contractually binding, like a purchase and sale agreement, that we believe fully that they will move forward with that.
And this is a private conservation easement, right? There's no federal agency or other kind of program funding and requirements that we have to comply with?
Correct. It would be with private charitable donations.
You want to show your hand at all? You want to show your hand?
Can I have like 3 minutes?
Okay.
Can we take a 3-minute recess?
You want to go home? What?
Yeah. No, I just want to think about it.
You want to recess?
Either that or we just sit in silence.
I could fill the time a little bit.
Yeah, walk home. Next one.
Because like looking at this, it's kind of like a two to two. I think, you know, obviously very emotional. Bring up a couple of points. Just this whole area is a wildlife corridor. If you've lived here, like I've lived here since 1998, you've had moose come through your yard. You've had deer around the area. You've had to stop and wait for the elk to cross the road. That's what this whole area really is, you know. And preserving the respect to that is really, you know, the focus. It really is the focus. I don't think there's anybody in here that's willing to say that that's something that we should overlook. You know, I sort of lose the 24 acres with 4 acres of space for humans to share. I guess I'm seeing, like I'm hearing this as a one or the other when clearly there's a chance to have both. I understand, you know, changes like mixed uses, like these kinds of. Like I said, I've been out there. There's not a whole lot of room for people, you know, as far as using the bike path. There's not a whole lot of room to drive on. You know, I don't know where it goes. I give you 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I can add a little bit to that if you want, unless you're ready.
Dragon.
Dragon now. See how long everyone can last.
I mean, I did an assessment on that property for the Lake County Rec District. And it was for winter use, when it was a cross-country ski area. And as a wildlife biologist, you go out there and you look at all kinds of use. You look at scat, you look at rubs, you look at everything you can, right? Anything that will give you information if you're not seeing animals, and then you obviously record when you see animals there. And it was pretty clear to me with significant human use that we had to keep certain areas off limits, absolutely. And certain areas, dogs only. And that's why you got that when you went out there. That was because of me. And I do think that one could share the space, but I think we would have to limit the size. Is that me? Limit the size of the campground if we were to really plan more for wildlife use down there than what's currently proposed. I guess I would stand behind that.
All right. I think we can figure out how to take a vote. Like the conservation issues are big to me, and I think the trade-off of having campground infrastructure instead of people camping outside canyons wins in my mind. I go out those side canyons to run and bike and hunt, and I see terrible things out there. And a certain amount of that will always happen, but we will not fix it by not providing adequate recreation infrastructure. And we can still protect the remaining parcel, the majority of it. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going right now. So it does seem like we're 2-2.
I haven't spoken yet.
Well, I know that you want to be surprised. Yeah, keep it dramatic. No, sorry.
So are we close? You want to vote? I don't want to spoil the show. I mean, I'm totally a wreck.
I think because I don't know what makes more sense as far as motion, since if we're gonna make a motion that's gonna approve the campground that would go 2-2, or deny one that would go 2-2, and then have the mayor make a decision which one makes more sense.
Well, I see 4 potential procedural options for you. It seems to me you're ready to get to it, and you don't want either of the no action items. So I think that it might make most sense for, if you're so inclined, to make a motion to accept the campground grant and see where that takes us.
Motion to accept the campground grant.
Wait, can you clarify why that is? I want to accept the grant. Maybe in a different place.
Well, it's only,
Yeah, I mean, we have a very specific proposal and a very specific deadline. We have one more possible meeting at which we could debate this and make a decision and push it to next week. But I'm seeing this be right. I'm seeing the community fatigued by this, and I see you already and prepared. So it can either be phrased as a motion to accept the grant, or it can be phrased as a motion to reject the grant. And it seems to me as whichever one of you is most procedurally eager to move forward. So
I believe I made a motion. If it carries,
We need a second, please.
I second.
And the motion was,
to accept the grant.
which in my mind translates to moving forward with campground. Okay?
Correct.
So, let me hear from you. One, your vote, please.
Aye.
Kaz?
Nay.
My government's so fun. Sam?
Aye.
Heidi?
Okay.
Okay. I think it's time that we call this meeting, and we'll all come back in about 3 hours. No. Okay, so, wait. I too, I can get the lump in my throat. When I moved here, my husband and I we managed the Christian Village. We bought our little house in Hailey. There were no subdivisions, no Woodside, no Curtis. It was old Hailey. Nothing outside Canyon. Not a thing. We bought Quigley, which was very exciting, when Mr. Fox was killed in a tractor accident. We tried to develop it as an Audubon golf course. Didn't go. City didn't want to buy it. Wouldn't. Okay, nothing was out there. All those years ago, this community had a chance to protect that whole darn thing. We didn't take it. We had a chance to protect all of that canyon where you live. Every one of you. You came, you subdivided, you put fences and roads and dogs and horses, and now you're telling us that we're not allowed to make use of the same properties that you invested in because you love it there. Well, I loved Hailey long before you guys were even I was probably 12 when we went to married, and bought the house. Not true. But, so here's the dilemma. What you're asking this council to do is protect something that now you have, but you don't want other people to share. Don't. Here's what I'm thinking. No, I'm sorry. That's the way it seems. The problem is, if we go ahead and ask for a conditional use out there from the county, I think it's very likely we will be turned down. And therefore, I would rather see preservation aspect, we know is a sure thing. We know that's a sure thing. When we move ahead, believe me, it will not be because everybody says, oh, please, not where I live. Please, I don't want strangers. I don't want... No campfires. We wouldn't do campfires. It's ridiculous. But I do think the risk we're taking to go to the county with conditional use, when all of you feel as strongly as you do, maybe won't work. And therefore, right now, I've alienated everyone in this room. Alienated all you people at Croy by saying, you're protecting your own backyard. It's fine. I'm telling the camp supporters. That's what I want, but I don't think we're gonna get it. It's a good thing I'm not running for office because I've managed to alienate every single human being in this room. But I think the truth lies with, I don't want to accept the campground grant because I don't think it's going to go through in the long run. I'm going to start fresh. I'd rather deal with the land trust, know what we've got, and then try to move forward. So I'm voting to not accept that grant.
Do we need to consider the land trust letter of intent, or is that a separate?
I think that's now the next step.
That's correct. Okay.
Do we make a motion to accept the offer that's on the table by the land trust?
It would be a motion to accept the offer and authorize the mayor to sign that letter.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the offer that, what?
Go ahead, that was the mayor.
God.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the offer within, that is written up in the letter that was sent by the land trust to the city of Hailey regarding the 28-acre parcel out of Croy, and for the mayor to sign.
Seconded. I think you guys are a great management for this property. Thank you guys.
Great partner.
So it's moved and seconded that we accept the letter of intent from the Wood River Land Trust. I'll take your vote. Juan?
Aye.
Kaz?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
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 It's put to rest. And I want you all to shake hands with everybody in this room and kiss each other on the cheek with your mask on, of course. And I thank you for watching this process. It has been, I wanted this campground, I can tell you. But on the other hand, we gotta look for another place.
And you know what? We will. We will. I'm confident.
Thank you.
Thank
you. You know, it doesn't feel the least bit
Empowering voices.
Can we take a break?
Oh, yes. Take a breath. Gotta go. Yeah.
Very wise. I was getting it. These things get so emotional. No, you. Yeah, I mean, I was sitting here listening.
But I did. I get it.
Somebody was asking
How often do you get that?
earlier in session.
No, we haven't.
This is on people. I don't get
We also. No, you did great. You're making us guys. Let's just start with this little one.
I guess I should have done really ad roll this Next week's slot, absolutely. Thanks for coming
Guys, let's go.
Either way, so.
Bye, Jane.
Well, that worked. Is that Harry still?
That's me.
Hi, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.
You're up.
Are you ready?
You're up.
This is very anticlimactic.
Oh.
To say the least.
But it's interesting.
I don't think I've ever cleared the room so well.
For the record, there's still 10 people online.
So Harry Griffith, Sun Valley Economic Development. I'm here to ask for you to support our budget for fiscal year 22. Just as context, Hailey has supported us over the years at lesser amounts. I think if I go back 10 years ago, probably $1,500, maybe $2,000. In the last six years or so, it's been through Lisa's economic development budget to basically for the profiles that we do every year. We do an economic profile for each city. This year is going to be a little bit different. Had a meeting and talked about what could I do to help Hailey and get Hailey more engaged. Just for clarity, we're supported primarily by a grant from the Idaho Department of Commerce. We just re-awarded $25,000 for this year around $25,000 from Plain County, around $25,000 from Ketchum between the URA and the city, and just under $10,000 from Sun Valley. So we very much like Hailey to be kind of part of our partnership membership. We have a public and private sector board. We have 11 private sector members and one representative from each jurisdiction on our public sector board. Kaz is a representative on that board. The public sector board are non-voting members. Our objective really is to try to raise the whole economy for all of Lane County with no preference to north-south, tourism, non-tourism, public, doesn't really matter. We try to do it all. We are, when I talked with Lisa and Heather a little bit about what we can do for you, we have the materials we had in your package, which goes through our whole program. Okay, so that gets done irrespective of what you're paying or what city you're in. It's just work we're going to do. And it covers, I think, 12 major areas. Last year, a lot of the emphasis was on COVID recovery, and I think we're still going to have a lot of that this year, I hate to say. But we talked specifically about maybe doing some specific things for the city of Hailey. One of those was trying to help Hailey Council, city staff members, and also your business community understand what is coming in this ARPA program, this $1 trillion flood of money that is probably 30% defined and designed, and the balance is like totally up in the air. I learn something every week about the new program. So there's a lot of digesting, and we're in contact with all the SBA affiliates. I'm on the board of Region 4 Development. I get a lot of good insight from them. And it seemed that of greatest interest specifically for you would be some sort of a seminar or forum around that particular topic. Lisa's thrown since then a couple of additional things my way with the census data coming out. There's a lot of questions about what does this mean? How do we interpret it? That's what we do. We do a lot of numbers, a lot of analysis. This year we've decided we're actually not going to do the profiles. And that's for two reasons. One is, by the time we get 2020 done, we can only start it like now because data that comes from the government comes 8 to 9, 12 months late. So it's generally, and given last year's dislocation, some of the comparatives are not that good. We're going to start instead a quarterly dashboard that's going to look at many of the same parameters, but we're going to do it, I'm going to say 35 days after the close of the quarter because we get most of the data. And we're going to do that at the Plain County level. We're not going to break that down into all the different components, just again, too many numbers, too much data. So we will continue to produce information. We're also available to do specific bespoke projects for you guys, like the economic analysis on Red Creek or other bits and pieces. So really it's kind of, what do you need? We'll do what we can to help you. So I would just say, I think a $3,000 ask is reasonable on the basis of what the other cities have been contributing. We would just like to get back onto the Hailey boat. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's my approach.
Okey dokes. Other questions?
Mayor, this is Heather. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just to add to what Terry has said, the $2,000 has been appropriated in the budget that we're in the second reading of tonight. And this conversation is intended to draw out a creative moment from y'all after hearing Terry, to draw out any other ideas that you would like to see us include in the contractor services that we're working on for that. Expending that money.
And I guess I would just add that this is Lisa, that Harry and I talk regularly all the time. He and his organization are a great resource for us. that we use, and I am very glad that our city now is in a financial position where we can contribute back to the fees, because I know how valuable the resource is for us.
And I'll just say that being on the board, I brought this forward to the council a few years ago to say, hey, let's put some money towards this Fed. And at that time, I think it was 1,000. It was something less, but also agreed that there's a lot of great information that they provide us, and so I would be very supportive.
So Harry, you want a little, I can give feedback on the action plan, correct?
Sure.
Okay. The number one for housing and infrastructure is expansion of middle income inventory. I would love to see middle and low income.
Yeah.
And the accessible rental options be bumped up to a priority of 3. I mean, this is not surprising. I'm sure you know why. It's so bad. That's just my personal view. If we can, and yeah.
We're actually working on I'll use the word rental project. That I don't want to get too far down, but
that's okay.
We've got some stuff in the works.
I'm not looking for promises right now. I'm just letting you.
Well, and also, when was this action plan put together?
Yeah, this is put together.
It's changed. Needs.
Our retreat last year, which was virtual, so it's December.
Yeah. And then do you has SPED looked at any kind of analysis about wages and income?
We're always looking at kind of fair wage data and living wage information. So that's stuff that we constantly are tracking.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to have creative conversations about what we can do realistically, what is actually supported by data and good policy in increasing wages in our valley.
You're the man. You're the man.
But thanks for
all. To me, it's real simple. I mean, like the cards now, pay people more and charge people more. That's what the market demands right now.
Yeah.
And that's the word that we're talking with our business partners about. So you can't keep paying the $16 an hour for back of house that you paid 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do believe that the plan, because so much has happened in the last year and a half, is a little bit out of date already because of the rental issue that, back when we were looking at this, it wasn't so critical. It wasn't in the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
And so, I think you made a good point about that.
I got to go to the Summit 2019. I had a great time, met a lot of people. I think what you guys do to bring minds together is really important. I think we need to be a part of that in the way that we are.
So this year we decided we're not going to do a live summit.
Right.
We don't feel it's appropriate. Southeast Idaho just canceled their summit.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're talking about next.
Yeah.
So, but we are going to do a virtual event, probably over a day or 2 days, a couple of hours, like we did last fall.
Next time you do it in person, eat a gluten-free snack game. Last time I was there, I starved the whole time. just a comment.
Just a comment.
Well, and also, SPED does a lot of great forums
You're going to make him earn the $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, SPED does a lot of great forums. You had 3, I think, last year, and they're on really interesting topics.
I mean, for me, the topic of interest is, what has COVID done to our economy, and what does that mean for the future, and that gets into relocations and how the business environment's changing. But it also gets into the fact that, we've had, an avalanche of money here. I've got some numbers you'll see. We've had over $100 million already through CARES and the existing ARPA programs. That's $100 million. That's 5% of our economy.
Yeah.
And it's just coming in. So, and there's more. So anyway, lots of data.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening.
Thank you guys too.
Thanks, Harry. Drive safe. Watch out for the elk.
They're all over the road. Coming home from the symphony, they were all out playing in the street. Okay, what's up? COVID talk.
Consideration, some closing documents.
Oh, closing up. The Riverside.
Yeah, let's do those. Closing documents.
New business. I don't know that it's new business, but that's where it's agenda this evening. So this is, I envision this as a perfunctory matter. You all have debated and voted on the substance of this. This really is just packaging up those closing documents and authorizing the mayor to sign the documents that are presented in the packet.
Got it.
And Mr. Sims, am I correct that the motion language needs to include lot 19?
On the AIS, I inadvertently left off lot 19, yes.
Okay.
Is there any discussion that we need to, this business? Housekeeping.
Can the mayor sign the document that we ordered we here to sign? Motion to approve resolution number 081, authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary and required closing documents completing the purchase and sale transaction and take title to real property described as Hailey Town Site Lot 17, 18, 19, and 20, Block 32.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. I'll ask for your vote, please. Juan?
Aye.
Cass?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Heidi?
Nay.
Okey dokes. Next. Now with COVID. I'm actually going to ask you, do you want to lead this?
If that's what you want, or
I don't know that there's any staff introduction necessary for this. I think everyone knows the current status of the city's ordinances and orders are that there is an emergency powers ordinance that remains in place. We did that as a matter of housekeeping within the last 6 weeks or so. There's also a current emergency order that the mayor signed and was approved that is advisory only. And I think it's out of date given my understanding of what the public health information is out there.
so, great. I will just give notes from last week's meeting on the 18th, I believe. So, both the South Central Public Health District as well as several staff from St. Luke's are giving us updates on COVID. The positivity rate shot up from the previous week when it was up. Our county positivity is not shooting up as badly as the rest of the district, but it's important to understand that our numbers are underestimating because a lot of the, COVID hospitalizations are people from out of town and out of state, so their numbers get recorded wherever they come from, not here. So when we have 2 or 3 of our beds, of our hospital admittees with COVID being out of state, we only hear that we have 1 COVID admittee. And that sounds small, 3, or I think there might have been maybe 6, although don't quote me on that last week. Small numbers, but it can skew how our data is looking if they're out of state folks. I've heard some really infuriating stories of people coming here knowing they're COVID positive and then having to get hospitalized. And it's hard.
Cheating.
Yeah, it's really hard when people are asking us to let them be personally responsible and do what's right, and some people aren't doing it. So sorry, but all the data that the public health district and the hospital keeps track of is bad. All of our numbers are going up. There are no numbers that are trending in the right direction. Statewide, hospital capacity is really bad. Locally, it's a little better because we do have such a high vaccination rate, but we don't have anywhere to send people. And even here, one of our local docs, he said about half his shifts, he's having to deal with resource issues, whether it's no beds, no critical care resources, safety equipment, and patient volumes, people with COVID is increasing. And like I said before, there's like this trifecta of COVID, labor shortage, people delaying care. Breakthroughs are happening, but they're not a concerning trend. People that are getting hospitalized, that are using up resources that then affect the rest of us, are generally unvaccinated. The predicted peak is end of September, October, and I think that 30,000 a week number is still being thrown around, and that's what we're seeing slowly start to happen. Is that hospitalized? That's it, yeah. So, and you can look at all this on coronavirus.idaho.gov or the South Central Public Health District. But the other thing that we have to recognize, just like last time, is all of our data is 2 weeks old. So people get COVID and they get hospitalized, a week or two later, because the incubation period is so long, and then you have to get sick. Also, people don't show symptoms until well after they've been infected. So we're operating with information based a considerable time behind us. The last thing I will say, and this is probably what we need to at least have a conversation about, is St. Luke's and the Public Health District. The doctors and epidemiologists are saying that we should have mask requirements. That's their policy recommendation as public health experts. There are obviously other things we can do, but at a minimum, they're suggesting that we at least consider that, and if they were in control, they would have done it. They would have done it a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So that's why we're talking about it now.
So I expressed to staff the other day that I was not prepared to mandate masks at this moment. However, I want to encourage absolutely everyone in our community to mask up again. Because I think those of us that have been vaccinated, wore masks, did all the protective or vaccinations, did protect our community. We did some really good reversal of bad data. And I think it could be that the state is going to require the governor or someone else, to maybe have us go back into some kind of quarantine situation if it's as bad as predictions say it could be. So I think at this moment, they're talking triage. Who gets treatment, who doesn't?
Right.
And so we need to be proactive. We need to get our masks on. I announced the same thing last Sunday to my church peers. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. One, it's a good example. Two, we know it works. And three, we know that people are coming here just dragging their COVID along with them.
Yeah, and I'll just add, and I know we've been through this, so we all kind of know where we fall in our philosophy about public health measures. We know that masks and social distancing make a significant impact because we've done it before. I'm generally of the persuasion that we should do that earlier rather than later, but I also appreciate, and I've talked to the mayor and heard other people's perspectives, that vaccinated people are really frustrated with having to be asked to take additional considerations, or just that we're still talking about this, and that is 100% valid. The reason we would be masking is not to protect the unvaccinated people or people that are making choices that endanger the community. If there are people, kids that are 12, people immunocompromised, and others that can't get the vaccine, and then at the end of the day, it's not really necessary. It's not COVID that I'm concerned about. It's all the ripple effects that having a hospital full of COVID patients and having to triage care will have in our community. It's keeping kids in school, keeping people going to work, and I'd rather be a little extra conservative early than have to go through some kind of lockdown or more significant restrictions later on. I'm not saying we need to do anything today necessarily. I think if I was dictator of Hailey, I might, but we really need to be considering it seriously and really listen to our healthcare professionals and empathize with the difficult situation that they're in. So.
And I also think really businesses kind of need to wake up. I think they need to start requiring masks going in there, sitting down, whatever it might be, because already there are businesses that can't even be open because of staff shortages. So to be proactive and require your patrons to wear masks, to be seated, to possibly start setting different seats 6 feet apart, because ultimately if you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. And I think the businesses need to start realizing
consequences that might happen if they are in action by then.
Agreed.
I just want to state that it's really disturbing to me that the school board had a meeting and Lara Stone had to be escorted out because of anti-mask people screaming and yelling and carrying on. And it's so disturbing to me. And I think we have to just be realistic and know that that's going to come our way too. And it's not, I'm not saying that to try to influence, oh, let's not mask, have a mask mandate. I'm just being realistic. The lawsuit's going to come and the people are going to come. I mean, it was horrible at the school board meeting. Horrible. So we just need to know what is going to come.
We've got four voices that are like really not trying to hear these people say anything about how it's not like that masks do work or don't work. There's like a group of people that really feel that they're immune to this, that they have struggled through it and have taken the right combination of mushroom complexes and done the right things to do that. I don't know.
Vitamin D.
Right, vitamin. Sorry, I could. Vitamin D. You know what I mean? Like, in doing this in the first time, yes, we managed this well from the standpoint of like a global pandemic. We don't know information. People stayed safe. We're seeing an economic boom for our. This typically doesn't happen the black spot type of thing. I think we've done a great job. I think we have to learn from our previous thing and create more moments of reconciliation, but I don't hear that there's that moment of reconciliation. Like, I didn't wear a mask today because I felt like there might be some people that are in the same sort of boat of like, I want to know that there's some representation up there for me, that I could just be heard. And I don't know that they have that chance, right? Like, and I don't know that it's necessarily important besides to the human value of, I need to be heard by these people, and then spit back a reason. And if you're ignorant to the reason, like, I can only help you. You can only lead a camel to the water. You can't have them drink, right? But I'm nervous for that situation because we saw it. People demand, I guess, more understanding from us in some ways, and are not listening to what we do understand.
So I was at the museum today, and on their door, it says masks recommended. And I think everyone in town should put those up right now. Not mandated, masks, and they had the most adorable women in period outfits. They were clearly old photographs. And they were wearing big kind of scarves. So I'm saying we get copies of that. We give it to every business. And if they want to put it up, good. If they don't, bad.
I almost think we could have a stronger stance than we did coming into this. I think, like, we're talking about the businesses and they got to get it put together or whatever. Like, don't make these guys have to go through another planning period where they all have to design their own ways that they're going to get through COVID, and then maybe present them to some, Yelp review that's going to maybe have people come in or not come in or whatever. It's better from a managing standpoint that we just mandate something and people know what is going on. If we're going to manage it. If we're not going to manage it, then we need to know where our boundaries are to that, honestly. Because I don't know that recommendations are doing much.
Yeah, so are you saying, are you generally in favor of having another citywide mask mandate?
Yes.
Right now?
Yes. I am generally in favor of that because I think it manages this situation better than if we just leave it up to what's going to happen. I mean, we've kind of gone through the gambit already with, well, we don't like how you did this. Well,
but here's my concern, Juan. I think any reasonable mind would say, yes, we put a mask mandate in place. here's what we do know, and that's from experience. Those who won't wear a mask are not going to wear a mask.
Right.
And those businesses that don't want to enforce it won't enforce it.
Right.
And those very same people may or may not have been vaccinated. So by our mandating it, all we've done is reestablished the lines of mistrust, miscommunication, and locking. You know, we know that the health business over there said, I have clean air, and he recycles every 2 seconds. It's perfect air. The battle lines are in place. So I think now the goal is get as many people on board, because we're smart, and say masks are highly recommended right now. Do it. Individual businesses, restaurants, whomever. And if it comes down to it, believe me, Anjani and others at the county commission level, and I know Ned Burns will be ready. I can't speak for Ketchum or Sun Valley. They have different kind of things to talk about. But I think this is the first step. And with these numbers out and about in the community, I'm prepared to do a mask mandate. I think it's too early. But I think we have to step on highly recommended, do it right now.
And I think the only thing that I'm like, what we add to what we did is we offer reconciliation. I don't know if it's more often or I don't know.
I guess I would also like to see a little stepwise. I don't want to just put it out there that it's a mandate today. I think we need to do a little bit
And
of
follow the
stepwise.
numbers completely. Be ready.
And get everybody kind of geared up and prepared that, you know, if we can't get control of it, then it's going to become a mandate.
But also, I think private businesses, you could mandate that they are required to wear a mask.
No, absolutely.
And I hope they start doing that before we.
And I think that's where
part
one
of the
was going to.
stepwise.
Make sure
Right, but
that
I
businesses
feel-
know they can do this.
That's right.
I
It's
worry
private.
about
Yes.
businesses alienating themselves. In Ketchum, it's really not that big of a deal, right? You see masks required all over the place. And people come in or they don't, or they have
Or they don't
masks
wear
or they
the
don't. Right, exactly. Right?
Let's start this way.
Yeah.
We'll know more Wednesday,
Okay.
and then we'll just keep everybody informed. I think I should do some readings of, they're just second readings, we don't need motions. I kind of want to move this just along a little bit. So the first one is 122. Sorry, you can keep talking, I'll just read over.
Do you mind if I use the restroom while you do this?
Do you care if I read while you're gone?
Not at all.
Okay then,
Thank you.
help yourself.
Mayor, just so we're really, like, the city of Hailey is strongly encouraging everyone to wear a mask when they're in public.
Yes.
Whether they've been vaccinated or not, whether they're inside or outside.
Perfect. That'll probably be Wednesday's headline on the Iron Express.
Hi, Sam, on that.
Right,
But
Emily?
Mayor, no, Mayor Burke.
Right, Emily?
I heard that.
I see them up there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm
Perfect.
trying to use that public outreach thing.
Yeah. PSA announcement.
Plant seeds.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the second reading of Hailey ordinance number 1288, an ordinance calling,
These glasses?
let's start wearing them more often. Wait, that's big print, I can do this. An ordinance calling a general obligation bond election to be held for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the city of Hailey, Idaho, proposition of the issuance of up to $950,000 negotiable general obligation bonds of the city of Hailey, Idaho, and in providing for the issuance of such bonds, the levy of a tax to pay such bonds. Okay. One. Amen. Amen. Okay, this, I think is second. An ordinance of the city of Hailey, Idaho, entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022, appropriating the sum of $16,100,900. Those are the right numbers, maybe. Okay, they're good. To do for any expenses and liabilities of the city of Hailey for said fiscal year, authorizing a levy of significant tax upon taxable property within the city of Hailey, specifying the objects and purposes for which said appropriation is made, providing for the effective date of this ordinance on passage, approval, and publication according to law. Sorry, that was very critical.
May I ask two questions about the budget? One is, what did we decide that we were going to be able to send towards the Wood River Valley collaborative project? And what would we, determine that we're going to give STEP? I just have two questions about that.
I think we get to talk to Becky and
we have an update.
Well, Heather's on the call. My recollection is that Saved tonight at $3,000, and I'm happy to talk to Heather offline, but I believe that $2,000 could come out of my professional services line item in my budget towards the Wood River Valley collaboration. I haven't had a chance to talk to Lance. He wants to talk sometime this week.
thanks, Lisa. Good? So far.
Heather, jump in if you have any other thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, what you said, Lisa, is correct. Thank you.
So I don't know what ordinance number this is. It's an ordinance of the city of Hailey, Idaho.
1291.
What is it?
1291.
1291. Thank you. This is Hailey ordinance number 1291, the second reading thereof. An ordinance of the city of Hailey, Idaho, amending Title 17, zoning regulations, Chapter 17.05, Section 17.05.050, district use matrix of the Hailey Municipal Code by revising setbacks and adding a new note to the general residential (GR) zoning district setbacks, and by amending bulk requirements by adding the figure found in Section 17.04M.090, providing for a severability clause, providing for a repealer clause, providing for an effective date of this ordinance upon passage, approval, publication, and voting. Staff reports. Do we go party now?
None, Mayor.
Motion to adjourn.
You want Sawtooth?
What's that?
Sawtooth?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. You second. All those in favor? Aye. Sam?
Aye.
Aye.
Kaz? Yeah.
I just want to announce that I put my request for getting on the ballot candidacy.
You're in.
Whatever I did. Declaration of my candidacy today.
Good job, guys.
Good job, council, on a very tough topic.
You guys
This is
did
actually great.
You guys did
I think
outstanding.
we really honored the public process. I really do.
And being cordial with one another and actually having a debate. And Mayor, I'm afraid